Heart disease. It's the leading cause of death globally. For decades, the medical establishment has told us that the path to preventing heart attacks is simple: lower your LDL cholesterol. And the primary weapons in this war have been statins, and more recently, PCSK9 inhibitors. These are powerful drugs. They can slash your LDL cholesterol by 60% or more. But here's the problem that no one in the mainstream seems to be talking about. Lowering cholesterol is not the same as reversing heart disease. In fact, when you look at the data on plaque reduction, the actual buildup in your arteries that causes heart attacks, the results of these blockbuster drugs are, frankly, underwhelming. Today, we're going to look at two natural compounds that, based on the scientific literature, appear to outperform these drugs when it comes to actually shrinking arterial plaque. And the mechanisms behind them are so different from what you've been told, they might change the way you think about heart health forever. Let's start with the reality of pharmaceutical intervention. Statins and PCSK9 inhibitors are brilliant at their job. They inhibit an enzyme in the liver, forcing it to pull LDL cholesterol out of the blood. You see a dramatic drop in your lipid panel, and your doctor gives you a pat on the back. But what is actually happening inside your arteries? When researchers use intravascular ultrasound to measure plaque volume, they found that after a year of high-dose statin therapy, the reduction in plaque thickness is often only 0.0115 to 0.04 millimeters. That's less than the width of a human hair. To put it bluntly, statins are excellent at putting your car in neutral. They stop the plaque from growing. They prevent progression. But they don't put the car in reverse. They don't remove the plaque that is already there. It's a maintenance strategy, not a reversal strategy. And for someone who already has significant plaque buildup, halting progression is good, but it might not be enough. So, if powerful drugs that nuke your LDL from orbit can barely move the needle on plaque, what can? That's where the data takes a fascinating turn into the world of food and fermentation. The first compound is pomegranate juice. Now, I'm not talking about the sugary concentrate you buy at the grocery store. I'm talking about pure pomegranate juice. There was a landmark study that looked at patients with carotid artery stenosis. That's a narrowing of the arteries in the neck, a major risk factor for stroke. The participants drank just 50 milliliters of pomegranate juice a day. That's a very small amount, about a third of a cup. After 1 year, the results were astonishing. The thickness of the carotid artery wall, the primary marker of plaque, had reduced by 17% to 30%. That is a massive reduction. To put that in perspective, if you took a statin for a year, you might see a 1% to 2% reduction in mass, if you're lucky. This was a 30% reduction in thickness. Now, the first question most people ask is, well, did it lower the LDL cholesterol numbers? The answer is no. In many of these studies, the LDL cholesterol levels remained essentially unchanged. So how does it work? It works by changing the quality of the cholesterol, not the quantity. Pomegranate juice was shown to reduce LDL oxidation by an incredible 90%. Oxidized LDL is the villain here. It's the sticky, inflammatory form of LDL that gets trapped in the artery wall. By neutralizing that oxidation, you remove the fuel for the fire. Furthermore, pomegranate doesn't just change LDL, it supercharges HDL, your good cholesterol. While it may not raise the number of HDL particles, it dramatically enhances HDL function. It makes the HDL more efficient at doing its job, which is reverse cholesterol transport, going into the plaque, grabbing the cholesterol, and hauling it out of the artery. So, while a statin tries to prevent new cholesterol from coming in, pomegranate is actively cleaning up the mess that's already there. It's a fundamental difference in strategy. The second compound is nattokinase. For those who aren't familiar, natto is a traditional Japanese food made from fermented soybeans. It's sticky, it's stringy, and it has a distinct taste. But inside that sticky mess is one of the most potent enzymes for vascular health ever discovered. Nattokinase has been studied extensively, but there was a particularly powerful retrospective study conducted in China with 1,620 participants. Over the course of a year, researchers found that taking a high dose of nattokinase, we're talking about 10,800 fibrinogen units, resulted in a reduction of plaque size and arterial wall thickness by up to 36%. Now let's break down the mechanism here because it's critical. When we think of plaque, we often think of just a lump of cholesterol, but that's not accurate. A mature, dangerous plaque is more like a concrete wall. The cholesterol is the dirt, but the rebar, or the concrete that holds it all together, is a protein called fibrin. Fibrin is what the body uses to form clots and to stabilize structures. In a plaque, fibrin forms a scaffold. It traps the cholesterol and inflammatory cells, making the plaque solid and difficult for the body to remove. Nattokinase is a potent fibrinolytic enzyme. That means it specifically breaks down fibrin. It dissolves the scaffolding. When you take nattokinase, you are essentially knocking out the structural support beams of the plaque. Once the fibrin network is degraded, the cholesterol deposits inside become loose and unstable, but in a good way. They become vulnerable to removal by HDL and other mechanisms. Now, there's a crucial caveat here. You cannot get this effect from eating natto at breakfast. A typical serving of natto contains about 2,000 fibrinogen units. That's great for general health and clotting, but to actually reverse plaque, you need to hit a threshold. The data suggests you need doses above 6,000 units, and the most impressive results came from doses near 10,800 units. This usually requires a high-quality supplement. And importantly, in these high-dose studies, no significant side effects were reported. It appears to be a safe, targeted way to dismantle the structure of arterial plaque. So we have two different tools, each targeting a completely different part of the plaque problem. I want to share my personal experience with this, because it really highlights the power of combining these approaches. I combined pomegranate juice with nattokinase. Specifically, I used natto that was also rich in vitamin K2, which has its own benefits for arterial calcium. Over a 3-month period, this combination, alongside other lifestyle changes, resulted in a 20 to 25% reduction in plaque in my carotid arteries. Why did this work? Think of it as a multi-pronged attack. Pomegranate goes in and says, we need to stop the inflammatory oxidation, and we need to soup up the garbage trucks HDL so they can haul out the debris. Nattokinase goes in and says, we need to demolish the concrete prison, fibrin, that is holding the debris in place. Statins and PCSK9 inhibitors are great at blocking the supply of new bricks, but if you don't break down the old wall and take out the garbage, the wall remains. Pomegranate and nattokinase give the body the tools it needs to actually clean up the site. This brings us to the broader conclusion. If you are serious about reversing heart disease, not just managing it, but actually reversing it, you have to stop looking at a single number like LDL. Reversal requires 3 conditions to be met simultaneously. First, you must drastically reduce LDL oxidation. Second, you must enhance the function of HDL to remove cholesterol. Third, you must break down the fibrin scaffold that supports the plaque. If you only lower LDL with a statin, you are only addressing condition number 1 indirectly, and you aren't really touching conditions 2 and 3. That's why you see minimal regression. But if you use a combination approach, perhaps using a statin for its LDL lowering power, combined with pomegranate for oxidation and HDL function, combined with nattokinase for fibrin breakdown, you create a synergistic environment where the body can finally heal itself. This isn't about abandoning modern medicine. It's about integrating the best of both worlds. It's about realizing that a lifestyle and supplement approach can target biological pathways that pharmaceuticals simply don't touch. The path to reversing arterial plaque is complex, but it can be simplified into these core steps. Over the course of 1 to 5 years of consistent adherence to a protocol that addresses these 3 pillars, lowering oxidation, enhancing cholesterol removal, and breaking down fibrin, you can achieve a level of cardiovascular health that most people think is impossible. We have been told for so long that once plaque is there, it's there for life. The data on pomegranate and nattokinase proves that is a myth. The body is capable of profound repair if we give it the right tools. If you want to prevent the leading cause of death on this planet, you have to move beyond the simplistic narrative of lower your LDL. You have to become a student of the mechanisms. You have to ask, are you just stopping the progression or are you actually reversing the damage? In a future video, I'll detail the exact 3 conditions I implemented to achieve that 20-25% reversal. But for now, I want you to remember this. Pomegranate and natto aren't just health foods. When used strategically, based on the science, they are powerful tools that can do what the strongest drugs sometimes cannot. They can turn back the clock on your arteries. Thanks for watching. Stay healthy, and I'll see you in the next one.